Top 5 sourcing mistakes and how to avoid them. This is a presentation that I gave at the Crowdfunded Summit just a few days ago. The CEO of Kickstarter was speaking there, the CEO of Indiegogo, and this presentation went down really well. I got a lot of really good positive feedback on it. So I requested a recording of this so I could share it with you guys today, and make sure you stick around to the end where there's going to be a free download for you guys, which is really going to help you not only learn these top 5 sourcing mistakes, but avoid them as well. It's going to save you guys a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's going to align you with the best manufacturers and develop the best products. Hope you enjoy. Today's presentation, we're going to go into the top 5 sourcing mistakes. And I got a very, very nice introduction there, but I actually had a slide with a quick intro as well. And when you mentioned I've worked with the NBA, the Olympics, the United Nations, Alibaba, founder, a lot of different other companies. And the main thing for me, I feel one of the key phrases I go by is something called like proximity is power, because I believe that to get the best results, that you have to put yourself in proximity of the people and the things that will align you to get those results. And I think just by you guys attending this summit today and tuning into this presentation today, you've put yourself in proximity to get the best results in your product development and supply chain. So I'm super, super excited to go over this with you today. So I've designed, developed, sourced, and manufactured over 2,500 products, personally visited more than 500 factories, and attended more than 20 Canton fairs. Canton fairs coming up in October, happens twice a year. It's the biggest import-export fair in the world. Super, super excited about that. Manufactured products for the NBA, Olympics, United Nations, and also created brands for big box retailers in the UK, Europe, and the US as well. And co-creator of Sourceboom as well, which is a program where we help people with crowdfunding campaigns launch their products successfully. And a lot of people ask me, like, how are you able to, supply brands like the NBA, the Olympics, the Amazon brands, crowdfunding brands, retailers? And it always comes down to the key fundamentals of, if you can source the absolute best product at the best quality from the best price from the best factory, you can supply anyone that you want. And that's what I'm going to go over in today's presentation. In my sort of 13 years experience, here are the top 5 mistakes that I've seen, and here's how we can avoid them. So one other thing, I do have a YouTube channel called Sourcing with Kian, where I make a lot of videos on sourcing and supply chain. And if you're interested, check that out. You can also just scan this, and there'll be loads of videos on sourcing and supply chain as well. So let's dive into it. Here are the top 5 sourcing mistakes. And you know what? I'd be really, really interested for anyone in the chat, whether you're watching live or watching on the replay, if you could write in the chat what you think these mistakes are, right? Because you might have gone through some of these mistakes yourself already. Maybe you're getting started. You might be thinking, what are the pitfalls that I want to avoid? Or maybe you've already sourced your first product and you're like, yeah, I really, really suffered with this one. But from doing 2,500 products, of course, there were a lot of mistakes that were made, and I'm going to share with you my top 5 just now, but more importantly, how we can avoid them. And this is going to be very interactive. I'm not just going to read out some slides, but with every point that I show you, I'm going to show you real life examples, live implementation, live screen sharing of things that I'm actually doing today. So the first one, let's dive into it. For anyone who guessed correctly, is choosing the wrong supplier. And the main thing here that I want to cover is that we have such a wide choice of suppliers that we can work with. So no matter what type of product that we're developing, there's such a large abundance of manufacturers, whether it be in China or any other country, what their capabilities are, what their access to raw materials are, what type of certification they have, what access to skilled labor they have, what products they've developed for other brands, what markets they supply. There's so many different touch points that we can analyze, that we can look at to decide, right, this is the best manufacturer that aligns with me. So rather than just list off some bullet points, I'm actually just going to do a live screen share of, let's go to Alibaba.com, right? Because this is probably the most common place where people will start off like sourcing their products. And the example that I want to give in today's presentation is I'm rocking these blue light blocking glasses. And I would actually encourage everyone to sort of get some blue light blocking glasses, because we always spend a lot of time behind our screen, behind our phones. So this definitely helps protect your eyes and helps you get better sleep at night. So for the purpose of this, we're going to search for blue light blocking glasses, right? So if we go blue light blocking glasses, and see, you have 2 options at the top. You can search by products, or you can search by manufacturers. And if we go search by product, this is not, I don't advise searching by products, but I want to show you why, right? So as we search for blue light blocking glasses and we scroll down, obviously a lot of the glasses look the same, right? But we see some for 85 cents, some for $2.50, some for $1, some for $3 to $4, some for
to $1, and we scroll down, and then these go up to $17, $17. So you can see the price ranges from $1 to $17, right? But as we look at all the images of the products, it's very, very hard to tell them apart. You can't really see from the image, right, which one's got a better lens, which one's got a better frame, which one's got better casing, which one's got better packaging. So it's very, very common for people to get attracted to a low price, to be like, I'll go with that one because that's the cheapest one. But as a result, there's going to be a lot of quality issues and defects. So the purpose of Alibaba is to actually find the best manufacturer. And once you find the best manufacturer, that's when you can then start to negotiate price and things like that. So rather than products, we're going to select manufacturers. And then now we're going to type out blue light blocking glasses. So if we go blue light blocking glasses again, and then now it's just going to organize them by suppliers. But the key things that we're going to look out for, right, is that here we have verified manufacturers. This is probably the most important thing, because this shows us that the suppliers have been verified by a third party. It means a company like Intertek or SGS or TUV have gone into a factory, and if they say that they've been in business for 15 years, if they say that they have 150 workers in their factory, if they say that they have these certifications, a third party has gone in and verified that. So we're very comfortable that we know exactly who we're doing business with. But if they're not verified, then it's just them saying who they say they are, and we don't really have any idea. So normally the first thing I do is I scroll right to the bottom of the page, and you can see here that it's got 8 different pages of results, and that's for verified. If we select all manufacturers, it would probably give us 50 pages of results. So it's narrowed it down already. Then I'm going to select trade assurance, and trade assurance, it just means that our payment is protected. So if we ask for glasses with a red frame, but we get a blue frame, it means we'll get refunded by Alibaba for getting something not correct. And then next, as we scroll down here, this is the factory certification. I always select ISO and BSCI, which are Business Social Compliance Initiative, and ISO is a quality standard. And it just means that if a factory has these accreditations, they're more likely to be a reputable factory. So this just narrows our list down a little bit further. Now that we've kind of got this list of searching by factories, which are verified, which we get trade assurance, which have good quality certification on their factory, the next thing I'm going to do is scroll down this list of suppliers. But the key things that I'm looking out for is the first name in any company name is always the city or the province of which that factory is located. So in China, they tend to specialize regions for certain products. So I want to find out what is the region which actually specializes in this product. So here we can see Wenzhou, Yiwu, Wenzhou, Linhai, Wenzhou, Wenzhou, Wenzhou. So Wenzhou seems to be the most common name, right? And you can even do Control and F and type in Wenzhou, and you can see it's got 9 results. So there's more results for Wenzhou. So that's the most common area for this particular product. Now, if you see a company that says like Beijing, then you kind of know that that's an outlier, right? So it helps you identify what is the area which specializes in this product. Then next thing I'm going to do is that you see here, it says years under the name. That's how many years the company has been on Alibaba.com. And I'm happy working with any company which has been on there for 5+. I definitely don't want to be working with a factory which just listed there a year ago, right? Because maybe they're not actually an expert in that product. They've just set up their company. They don't have enough experience. So I want to see 5 years plus. And then mistake number 1 that I wrote about was choosing the wrong supplier. And what I mean by that is that you will probably have a rough idea, like pre-launch, based on the list and database and social media that you've built up, roughly how many units you envision to order. You know, it could be 500 units, it could be 20,000 units, but you probably have like a rough ballpark. And see here where it says number of staff. And then again, this is verified information, so we know it to be true. If I've got a product where I know I'm only going to need around 300 pieces, but it's a fully customized product, I'm way more likely to get that from a factory which has less number of workers. But if I only want 300 units and I go to a factory which has got 2,000 workers, there's no way that they're going to be interested in working with me. But the same way, if I've got an order for 50,000 units and I find a factory which has got 2,000 workers, I know that they will have certain structures in place and certain systems and operations which are more capable of supplying the quantity that I need, better quality control, etc. So we can go in and verify that information. Let's just take one of these companies, for example. So we've got here Wenzhou, 15 years, 120 staff, Sopal Optics, right? So if we click on view profile, I just want to show you real quick the type of things that I would look for. So if we go to visit store, the first thing I'm going to do is hover my mouse over products to see what other products that they do. So we can see blue light blocking glasses, custom sunglasses, optical frames, kids glasses, reading glasses. So they specialize in glasses. That's what we want to see. But if we hovered the mouse over products and we saw iPhone cable, fidget spinner, winter gloves, we just know that they're selling hot products. But this is very, very good for us to know. So then if we go back to the company overview, again, this is all the verified information. So we can see here they've got ISO 9001, BSCI, CE certification, quality traceability. They've got inspectors. They've got raw material traceability. That's quite important. Like, let's say if you want sustainable products, eco-friendly products, recyclable products, well, the raw material is fully traceable, and that's verified information. And then see here, you've got that verified logo here. This is photos inside their production facility, which has been taken by a third party. So we get eyes and ears essentially inside the factory that we know exactly who we're dealing with. We can see the type of machinery that they have, the type of organization and spacing and things like that. And then as we scroll down further, we can see that this company has been registered since 1998. So it's been exporting for 24 years. The number of years, which I think it said 15 years before we went into it, as I said, is the number of years they've been on Alibaba, but this is the number of years that they've actually been exporting. So loads of experience. If we want to look at their certificates, we can zoom in on that and check that out. And then the really important thing here is that the main markets, see, it says 30% of their exports go to North America. So if I'm also selling these blue light blocking glasses in North America, it gives me a lot of confidence that the factory I'm selecting, the main market that they supply, is also North America. It means that they're familiar with the standards and the capabilities of the market that I'm also going to supply. But let's say the main markets said South American market, African market, and domestic Chinese market. I'm like, well, these guys have never actually exported to the USA, so I don't really feel comfortable. They know exactly the requirements of our market. So those are good things to look out for when selecting a factory. And we can sort of go on and on down the list. But as we see this list of factories, I like to go by a model and a system of 10, 5, 3, 1, meaning I'm going to select my top 10 suppliers. And if you see one that you like, you can literally just click that love heart and that will save it onto a favorites list for you. I'm going to select my top 10. I'm going to have my specification sheet. I'm going to send that out to the factory. And then I'm going to narrow that 10 down to 5 in terms of, right, here are the 5 that their communication was very good. They understand it. They understood what I wanted, and they're ready to now take it to the next stage. And then from those 5, once we get pricing and things like that, I'm going to request samples from 3. Now, bear in mind, however much customization your product requires, it might require a lot of tooling. So maybe you don't want to get, samples from 3 different suppliers. That might be quite costly. But let's just say for the purpose of these glasses, like 3 samples from 3 different suppliers is no problem. And then I'm going to order from 1. So we're going to go 10, 5, 3, 1. And then to that one supplier that we work with, well, at least we've also got 2 backup suppliers as well. We've got 2 other suppliers which understand the requirements of our product, and we've also got the samples from them as well. So if anything ever happens that, let's say we launch our campaign and it goes wildly successful and the existing factory isn't able to keep up with demand, we've got another 2 factories already lined up which have seen our product, sampled it, and we've also got the pricing, and we've also got good communication with them as well. So that's kind of the step-by-step process I would apply on Alibaba, just as a quick overview to align with the best manufacturer for your brand. But a lot of people also ask me, like, hey, what would you suggest outside of Alibaba? What if I want to source outside of China? There's another great tool which I want to give you a very quick demo. Is a website called Import Yeti, and again, this is totally free. You go to importyeti.com, and what Import Yeti does is that any shipment that goes into the USA, that shipping documentation is public information, right? And what Import Yeti does is that they scrape all of that public information and they put it into this website. So if we type in a brand, we can search their shipping records to then find their factory, and then also what import duty they imported at as well, which is really cool. So the bigger the brand, the higher likelihood that you'll find them, because if it's just an Amazon brand or a crowdfunding brand, and they've only done 1 shipment, maybe their records aren't available yet. But let's just take a big brand that everyone knows, right? So if we go the North Face, we can search for their shipping records to find their factories. And as we see here, the North Face, a division of outdoor, we can see here that they've done 18,000 sea shipments. And as we scroll down, we can see month by month how many shipments that they did. And then let's say, for example, this one in September 2022, they did 448 shipments, which is crazy. And then as we scroll down here, we can see all their suppliers, what country they're from, how many shipments they've done per supplier, what were the products, and what were the import duty code that they imported at, which is insane because if you know like who's the market leader for your particular product, you now have direct access to who those factories are and where they're located. So for example, you can see here that they have some factories in Guatemala, in Cambodia, in Indonesia, in Bangladesh. And so a lot of these are actually outside of China. Now, specifically, if we want to find the North Face's backpack supplier, it's actually my favorite product to develop. So if we type in backpack, right, we can see here, this company, Pangkuk in Indonesia, is a backpack supplier. They've done 223 shipments for the North Face. So we can click on their company information, and then we can also see how many shipments they've done. As we scroll down, we can see who are their other customers. We can see that they were Michael Kors, REI, Adidas, the North Face, Eagle Creek. We can see they've done 1,000 shipments for Michael Kors. So very, very good information to have. Now, these factories are not necessarily in Alibaba.com. So if we want to contact them, we can just click on name and it's going to Google their name. So see here, welcome to Pangkuk. We can click on their website. And then let's say we want to contact them. They will have a contact us section. So we go to menu, contact us. And then here, outdoor bag in Ho Chi Minh, Mr. Yemen, and that's his email address. So literally within a couple of minutes, we've got the email address of the factory in Indonesia, which manufactures backpacks for the North Face. And we did that by scraping import records using a website called Import Yeti, which is totally free. So it's an amazing resource. We can find great quality manufacturers, and that's what's going to help you avoid mistake number one, which is not aligning with the right manufacturer for your brand.
Hey guys, if you are getting value from this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and tap the bell, ding ding, to stay up to date on the latest videos that come out on this channel. Also, I would greatly appreciate if you could smash that like button as well. Now let's jump into mistake number 2.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed mistake number 1. Now let's dive into mistake number 2, which is ignoring the specification sheet. Now, again, I want to give you a real life example, but I just want to state quickly the importance of having a specification sheet. You know, some people also call it a tech pack. And this is basically that 1-page PDF, which has got all the information about your product, whether it be the weight, the materials, the dimensions, any sort of cuttings, any certification you require, sort of packaging requirements, basically a 1-pager that someone can clearly see it and be like, right, I know what I'm quoting for here, right? And you might want to design it and sketch it yourself. You might want to hire a designer, or you might want to just take random images from different websites of features that you like and then group them together as well. I've even drawn a spec sheet on an iPad. I've drawn it on a napkin, but until you get it to a format that a supplier is like, right, okay, I understand what this is. That's basically our specification sheet. Now, I want to show you a quick example. And the reason why the specification sheet is so important is that it allows the manufacturer to fully understand what they're quoting for. And this is one which was just done a few days ago, right? This is for a backpack. And here we've kind of put the accessories that we want, the front, back, the dimensions, the sketches, how the back panel will look like. Nothing too complicated, nothing too crazy. And we've put all our features, all the accessories, the dimensions, the materials that we want to use, all the features, and we just sort of highlighted it like that, right? So just 5 pages, not so technical drawings, and that's that. Now, why this is really important is that when I send that specification sheet to a manufacturer, they're all now going to quote like for like. I didn't go into Alibaba and type in backpack, and then I was like, all right, give me a price for that, and give me a price for that. And then now what happens is everyone's quoting on what they actually make rather than what we actually want. So I want to share with them what I want. And then once I get the pricing back, I can now easily compare because everyone got the same information. Now, the next step from that is that once we get the price back, I also want to know, like within that specification sheet, right? We had different materials, different buckles, different zippers, different pullers, waterproof coating, sponge padding that goes on the shoulder straps, different EVA foam on the back panel. There's so many different components that go into that. Now, if I get a price for $35, I've got no idea what was the fabric cost, what was the labor cost, what was the accessory cost, how much material was getting wasted. So to really, really, really get the best price for your product, you have to have the specification sheet. And then once they give you the price, you have to ask the factory, can I get the bill of materials for this product, the BOM? And the bill of materials, I want to show you a quick example. So I got this recently from a factory, and as we scroll up, these are all the different fabrics which were involved. You know, we've got cordura, we've got nylon, we've got air mesh, we've got 4-way stretch. Here are all the suppliers of the materials to the supplier. This is how much the size of the materials. Then this is the consumption that they're using per yard. That's the cost per product. So they figured out the cost of the yard then versus how much they use. So I've got a breakdown exactly of the cost per material going into this product. So all the fabrics amount to $11.79. Then we have all the trimmings, the nylon trimmings, Velcro, piping, draw cord, tape. Same again, who their suppliers are, fabric consumption, cost. And I know that we're paying $2 for the trimmings. Then we go into the printings and laminations. I've got all the cost of those as well, 1.4. Then I've got all the buckles and the accessories and things like that. And by the way, like, I don't want to overwhelm you. Like, this is not like, you don't have to go into this level of detail. It's just on a backpack. There's so many different accessories, but I've basically I knew exactly what I wanted. So I put that information on the specification sheet and then they quoted me accordingly. So now we're going to the buckles and we can see there that that's $3.3. And in the packaging as well, all the stickers, the labels, the hang tags. That's why it's good to be upfront. If you see something in a store of what you know you want, you can take photos to be like, right, I want that type of hang tag. I must have this type of sticker. It must be this type of color box. And then they can quote it accordingly. No point in just asking for a price of a product. And then once everything's confirmed and you start production, then you're like, oh, I want this really fancy box that opens up and it's got all these like lights on it. And you're like, well, that's going to be another $5. And you're like, well, I didn't factor that into my pricing. So that's why it's really important to have that information up front or early on in the product development process so they can price it accordingly. So the total bill of materials here, you can see is $20.2, right? And then here they've also put a fabric loss, meaning when they get like all the yardage, they don't use 100% of the material. They have to cut around it. So some fabric is actually lost. Then they've also calculated $1 per unit for the freight, meaning when they get all these different materials and buckles and accessories from different suppliers, for that to arrive to their factory, they had a freight cost associated as well. And it's not very common that factories give you this information, but they've even put here what is their labor cost, how much money they have to pay to their workers per piece to assemble this product. Bear in mind, the backpack's it's very, very labor intensive. It's got a lot of different compartments that you need to assemble. So that's very, very interesting for me to know. And then so I've got total bill of materials and labor costs and everything involved is $36. And then they've put here what is their overhead and profit, and they want to make a 20% profit margin on the cost of the goods, which I thought that 20% is a little bit high, but I greatly appreciate the transparency that they've shared with me. So they said that they want to make $7 per unit and the total cost to me will be $44. Now, see here, I have now got so many different ways that if my target price for this bag was $39, I can scroll through this and figure out how I can shave off $5. Or if something was a lot cheaper than what I thought it was, I can say, right, for this particular trimming or this printing, I want a higher quality than this. Or if I'm not happy with the quality of my product and I'm like, you know what, I don't mind to go up to $50, but I want better quality on the shoulder straps. I know that I've got room for that because I can see what is the price per unit per component. Or if I just say, look, I think 20% is really, really far too high. And a lot of the other factories I work with work off 12%. Can you bring that down? I now have that information to work with, right? But the whole point is that this information came from originally the specification sheet for them to then calculate that bill of materials. And the relationship is really important with the supplier. For them to be willing to share that information with you, they have to really take you seriously as a customer that they want to keep happy and they want to work with. So that's really, really key. And let's now dive into mistake number 3. And because I've got so many things open on my desktop that I want to show you, sometimes I actually lose my presentation. So let's just see if I can find it. 1 second. And oh, here we go. Okay, cool. Let's get back to the presentation. So mistake number 2 was ignoring the specification sheet. Now, mistake number 3 is, drum roll, unplanned mold and setup costs, right? So particularly with the crowdfunding industry, most commonly the products you're going to develop require some sort of mold cost, setup cost, some sort of tooling cost. But this is a big mistake that I see within the industry as well, because mold costs, as you guys know, can be such pie in the sky numbers where a supplier would say, right, the mold cost for this is $20,000. The mold cost for this is $8,000. The mold cost is $25,000. And in your head, you don't really have like a reference point to be like, is it actually $20,000? Or like, if they just added on a really high margin, that seems really expensive, but the tooling looks really complicated. So I want to kind of go over like a step-by-step guide of how we can find out what is the actual mold cost and then how we can set up in the most cost-efficient way as well, because all the risk is on us if we're paying such a high upfront cost as well. So it's very, very important to compare the mold costs with other manufacturers. The same way we just compared prices of these blue light blocking glasses once we send a specification sheet, Like we should also, if a supplier says, right, the mold cost for that is $5,000, well, I've got another 9 suppliers that I'm talking to where I can also ask them, what's the mold cost of this product? And if all of the suppliers say, look, the mold costs $5,000, then that's justified that that is the actual cost. But if someone says it's $10,000 and then the rest of them say $4,000, I know that one of them is an outlier. They're just trying to make some stupid margin, or they probably misunderstood what I require. And there's things to go deeper into there, right? So we have to compare the cost of the mold with other manufacturers to then figure out what is the actual cost. Then let's just say the mold cost is $10,000. It's not like, okay, cool, let me wire you $10,000 and get started on the mold. A lot of times the mold fee can be split with the supplier, because if I pay the supplier for the mold, that means I'm committing to do my manufacturing with them for the long term. So as a result of them making the mold, they're now going to get my orders for the next 2, 3, 5 years. So you can say to the supplier, look, I understand the mold cost is $10,000, but because we're going to be working together and for the long term and for a partnership, and I don't want to go to any other supplier, let's split this mold cost 50-50. I'll contribute $5,000, you contribute $5,000, and then together we'll be making this product together. We'll grow this business. I'll benefit from the sales. You'll benefit from the orders. And they might say, yeah, fine. You know what? We actually think this is a great product. We're super happy that you've chose us. Let's split the cost 50-50. Or they might say, forget it. That $10,000 is your cost. We're not getting involved in that. If you want to make it with us, $10,000. I'd say, okay, no problem. But we can also decide to work in partnership and get that mold refunded after X amount of quantity. And what I mean by that is I would say, okay, cool, I'll pay the $10,000 up front for the mold, but I want 25% of the mold cost refunded once I order 5,000 units from you. I want 50% of the mold cost refunded once I order 10,000 units from you. And I want 100% of the mold cost refunded once I order 20,000 units from you. And supplier most likely will say, yeah, okay, deal, because you've paid for the mold up front, so I don't have any risk. But only after you've ordered 20,000 units is when I'm going to pay that cost back. And once I get an order for 20,000 units, I've made like a decent amount of profit that more than covers the cost of the mold. So I'm okay. And in this way, you've still got your mold for free, but you paid for it up front, right? So there's different things that we can do and different strategies we can adopt, so we don't get left with this like $20,000 bill for a mold, and then that's just a sunk cost. We can actually get that back. Then it's very important to establish what is the life cycle of the mold. Like, how long does it last, right? If I'm spending $20,000 on a mold, I need to know how many units can you make with this mold, right? Because what happens if you can only make 100,000 units with this mold? Then I know roughly, well, it's $20,000 for 100,000 units. But if they say, look, we can make 2 million units with this mold, I'm like, cool, that's a one-time cost. I never have to pay that again. But if I'm going to order 1 million units, I know I need 5 different molds. So that's just good information for you to know. How long will the mold last? What is the life cycle of it? And then you have to have some sort of agreement with the supplier that they will not share your mold design, because once you actually make the mold and it sits in their factory, obviously, we can talk about patents and things like that, but we don't want the factory to actually be using our mold for other customers that they have as well. And there's certain things you can do there as well. You can get N&N agreements and things like that. But the ultimate form of defensibility is that you can get your mold done and then remove it from the factory, take it outside the factory once the production's done, and then bring it back into the factory once you need them to get going on another order. That, because if you've paid for the mold, you actually own it, right? So that's one way. Another way is that you can put your logo inside of the mold, right? Let's take that backpack, for example, and we have a buckle. You have a buckle on the shoulder strap to pull it, right? If you go to like Nike or the North Face, they have a Nike tick or they have a North Face logo sticking out of that buckle. That means that mold in the mold, their logo was embossed, right? Meaning it sticks out. But if it's debossed, meaning it goes in, that means that logo could potentially be filled in, so that even if you have your logo there, they can smoothen it out and use it for someone else. So just to show you a quick example, embossed is when it pops out, debossed is when it goes in. So you definitely, if you're paying for a mold, you can have any design or any logo on that mold anyway. So better to have your logo on it or the symbol of your brand and then have that embossed. It means they cannot use it for anyone else. If Adidas wanted to use the buckles from Nike's factory, the Adidas bags are going to have a Nike logo on it, right? So they can't do that. So if you emboss your logo, you've got full protection of your product being on, of your logo being on all your products. So let's jump into mistake number 4, which is skipping product testing and skipping inspections, right? And what I mean by this is that, I've done, I don't know how many thousands of shipments from China, right? And touch wood, I haven't had many disasters, but that's because I do pre-shipment inspections on all of my orders. And I think that, within the crowdfunding industry, with all your innovative product ideas, it's essential that, we kind of walk through the process of finding the right supplier. There's another process of aligning with the right, sample process to get development samples, pre-production samples, pre-shipment samples. But what happens if we just get perfect samples, but the production is actually something totally different and it's terrible? Well, that's when we send in pre-shipment inspection companies. These are these third-party companies which also verify the Alibaba companies, such as Intertek, SGS, HQTS. And I work with many different inspection companies. And if anyone needs any recommendations for that, feel free to reach out to me and I can introduce you guys. But I want to show you a real life example of how detailed of a report you get of your production. And bear in mind that these inspections are just, they cost $200, right? To do an inspection like this. And this was actually a friend of mine's brand, and he was doing kids' scooters, right? I just want to show you real quick what you can expect to see on an inspection report. So here you can see this was the purchase order quantity, 4,000 pieces. And in the inspection, they're going to sample 200 pieces, right? The most important thing on an inspection report is this thing called the AQL. This is the accepted quality level, which means that you're allowed 4% minor defects, you're allowed 1.5% major defects, and 0% critical defects. So on a kid's scooter, a minor defect might be there's a scratch on the surface, there's dirt marks on the scooter. A major fault might be the handlebar is 2 centimeters shorter than what was specified. The handlebar still works, but it's shorter than it should be. And a critical defect would be that the wheels don't turn, that the product doesn't work, right? We're allowed 0 of that. So as you can see here, we got given a 57-page report with plenty of images, right? And this is so cool because when you order your product, you now have a third party going in and verifying what was actually done in the production. So this particular inspection did not pass. It says it didn't conform, and it didn't conform for workmanship. And if I have an inspection that doesn't pass, I don't freak out because I'm like, well, let's dive into it. Let's see why it didn't pass. And then let's make our own decision if we're happy to ship this. So you can see here that they use these stickers, which are up to 2 centimeters. So if they say anything like, okay, there's poor printing or there's a scratch mark on the surface, you can see the size of those defects, right? So you can kind of see the scratch here, the scratch here. And I'm kind of looking at that it's not ideal, but it's not going to prevent me from shipping it. It's not a massive deal. But it's good that I now have the choice after seeing, and these products are taken completely from random boxes. It's not like they just take the first 20 pieces and check those. They randomly check the production. Then they check does the barcode scans? They're like, okay, cool. It's gonna work at retail. And then however many units that you ordered, however many units which were on your purchase order, they then confirm that number of units was also there in the factory. So now we go back to that AQL level where we've got the minor, major, and critical. So out of 200, they were allowed 14 minor defects, but they actually had 25. Out of the 7 major, they had 3. So now let's look at the 25, right? 9 of them were for dirty marks on the surface. And then it says could be cleaned. So having this information, if it was me, I would go to the factory and say, look, you didn't pass the inspection. Here's a copy of the report. There's obviously some dirty marks on the surface. We don't like that. We want our products to be fully clean. I'm not going to fail this inspection. I'm not going to ask you to remake the goods. But what I will ask is that you open up every single unit with a clean cloth and you clean all the dirt marks off all the scooters, because these dirt marks will lead to negative reviews and also lead to returns. It's not good for our business. Therefore, it's not good for your business. So please rework the stock, clean them, seal them again, and then let me know when they're ready, and then I'll arrange a shipment, right? But now I've just made that awesome discovery by paying $200 for an inspection and getting a real accurate representation of what happened in my production. And as we scroll down further, I won't go through the whole report, but you can see dent marks on the box or dirt marks on the handle. That's quite a large dirt mark on the base of the scooter. So these are things that I would be sharing with the factory to ask them to improve. And it goes on and on and on and on. And then you get so much information. You can see the actual mass production, the stock, and that it's at least cleanly organized, that the carton markings are correct, that they've all got the barcode on it, that the barcode scans, how it's packed well, snugly, all that sort of stuff. It's got the warning stickers on it. So it just gives you full confidence that, all right, the stuff that I've actually produced is actually there and it's absolutely fine. So that is essentially mistake number, I found my presentation, great. That is mistake number 4, skipping product testing and inspections. Now, mistake number 5, Curious if anyone can guess it before we jump in, or if we actually remember like what the top 4 mistakes were up until now.
Hey guys, just a quick one. Remember, if you do want to learn more about Sourceboom, the program, and how we can help you in terms of your sourcing journey, all the resources and the training and tips and coaching calls and things like that, access to documents and templates and forms, just click the link in the description down below to jump on a call with someone from the team where you can learn more about the program. And if you want to stay connected with me and everything else, there's all sorts of different links and descriptions in the video below. Now let's get back to the next mistake to avoid.
But okay, right, let's jump into it. Mistake number 5, misreading your costs, right? And this is very, 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 very important, right? Because a big mistake I've seen within the crowdfunding industry is that people get a sample without even sort of deciding who's their manufacturer, without getting a final cost, without approving the final sample, as we discussed, without getting the final packaging. So you're literally running ads, creating a campaign, launching a campaign based on a sample that you don't know the actual costs of the product. And I've got a simple spreadsheet, which I've made just from experience over the years, which I want to dive into, which just shows you how to accurately calculate your costs and figure out to the cent what it costs you to land your product into your warehouse, right? So if we jump into it real quick, and this is something that, as well, that we have within the Sourceboom program as well. We've got all these like documents and templates and things like that to keep you right along the journey. So this was a bag that we were looking at. Here's the tactical bag. And everything is sort of being pre-filled out for you so that you can just type in whatever you want. The only thing that we need to have in this document is the carton dimensions and then what is the quantity per carton. Because based on that, we can figure out how many units fit in a box, what are the dimensions of the box. Then we know the volume of a container. Then per container size, we know how many units we can get in. And then that just makes our life a lot easier, right? So for example, I've put here that we want to order 3,000 pieces. And that's saying that we've got 375 cartons as a result of having 8 units per carton. And that'll be 45 cubic meters. But if we want to knock this down to, say, 2,000 pieces, that's going to take us down to 30 cubic meters. And then the buying order price will come down as well. So I put the factory name here, but if you want to get quotes from other factories, you can then just list those down here as well. Let's say, for example, I've put the carton dimensions of 60 by 50 by 40 centimeters, but let's just say they change to 60 by 60 by 60. Watch the cubic meters adjust. So now it goes up to 54 cubic meters. If we have 8 units in a carton, but now we can only get 6 units in a carton, see it goes to 72. So whatever information that we fill in, it will tell us what will be the cubic meters of our order. And why that's important is that you have 3 container sizes, a 20 foot, a 40 foot, and a 40 foot high cube. So if I'm going to order 2,000 units, and this is telling me that I can get 1,778 units in a 40 foot high cube, I'll probably adjust my order to 1,700 units, or I might ship 1,500 units and do 2 20 foot containers. So that just gives you good information to play with. And how that's calculated is in the bottom. I know the cubic meters of a 20 foot is 28 cubic meters, 56 in a 40 foot, and 70 in a 40 foot high cube. So that information is just put in this sum calculation. So it's just figuring out per container size, what's the total CBM that can fit in there. And then I put the price of the product here, $42 that we saw from that spreadsheet. But if we negotiate that to like 45, things will adjust accordingly. Then the duty rate, I've put as 10%, but let's just say there's a Trump tariff and it goes up to 35%. You can see here the total, including the freight and the duty. That price then jumps up, right? And then we have the freight cost per unit, knowing what's the cost of the container. So I've actually got a tab here for freight, and I update this every month and I put in new shipping prices. So this is getting accurate shipping costs every month, plus the product cost, plus what is the import duty that we input in there. So that's telling me if I ship in a 20 foot, a 40 foot, or a 40 foot high cube, that's my unit cost per container size to ship that product in. And then that's going to be adding in my freight cost as well. So my total for my product cost plus my freight cost plus my import duty is going to be $64.55. And then let's say we had some high setup costs here. Samples and freight was $300. Testing cost, let's say it was $3,000. That's telling us like per unit, we paid $2.15. But let's say that testing cost was actually $10,000 as we discussed. That puts up to $565 per unit. So I know exactly what it's costing me to the cent to import the product, plus what were all the setup costs as well. And then so it calculates what's the total cost. And then whatever we want to retail this product at, let's just say we decide to sell it for $199. it then tells us what is our profit margin. So based on the specification sheet, well, based on mistake number one, like aligning with the wrong supplier. So we find the best supplier, we send a specification sheet, we get the bill of materials, we have the correct sample process, we have pre-shipment inspection, and then we can actually analyze using that information, what are the exact product costs down to the cent to land that product from China or wherever in the world to my warehouse, whether it be in California or whatever. So I know exactly what it will cost me, and I know exactly how profitable I will be as a result. And then any tweaks we need to make, whether it's to the freight rate, the import duty rate, number of units in a carton, however many units we want to order, everything updates accordingly as well. So if we jump back into the presentation, that was mistake number 5, which is misreading your costs. So the top 5 sourcing mistakes and how to avoid them. Let's see if we can remember them. And remember, I did say at the start of the presentation, Mark set the bar really, really high. And my goal was to make this the best presentation on product development and supply chain. So I hope I've managed to achieve that for you guys today. Mistake number 1 was choosing the wrong supplier. Mistake number 2 was ignoring the specification sheet. Unplanned mold setup costs, skipping product testing and inspections, and misreading your costs. And actually, for you guys which have been live on the call and have stuck all the way here as well, I've actually prepared a free gift for you guys as well. It's going to be a really, really cool step-by-step guideline of a product development roadmap. So if you go to sourceboom.com/roadmap, you can download, it's got a type form where you just fill in some basic questions about what's happening in what stage of product development and supply chain that you're in. And then it's going to email you this automatically within a couple of minutes. And it's kind of like a step-by-step framework, 9 steps. And then per step, it gives you 3 different things that you need to do, you need to achieve in order to have the best product development process. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that presentation today. Definitely take note, sourceboom.com/roadmap. And we have another 20 minutes or so to jump into Q&A. So hope you guys enjoyed that, and I can't wait to jump into the Q&A with you guys.